Hey folks, it's Sol back with some of the takeaways from this week's 9.0.5 PTR build. Keep in mind that number tuning is happening on a pretty regular basis, so whether your class got buffed or nerfed or ignored, well, there's always next week, at least for now. The Valor point system is starting to come together a little bit. The Dungeon Journal reflects the new upgrade path for Mythic gear that starts at 184, which we know already, telling us that we can sort of target our gear by running a Mythic 0 for a piece that we really want and develop it from there. For efficiency's sake, though, we would want to pick up that piece from as hard of a difficulty as we can get away with, so we can save on them precious Valor points, because consider that Valor is capped each week, and that there is a finite amount of Valor that will be made available in the season. The cost of upgrading Valor doesn't seem to have changed from what was data mined by Wowhead, but turning in Covenant Callings will award a small chunk of Valor, 35 for normal Callings and 50 for Epic Callings. This tells us that Callings alone will get us to roughly half of the weekly cap, which is 750. It feels like it won't take too much in order to cap weekly Valor, but it's much too early to determine how long it's going to take to upgrade to a full set of gear, especially because by the time 9.0.5 releases, we're going to be at least 3 months into Season 1, which considerably cuts into the effectiveness of the Valor point system. The small concern that I have is with the finite number of Valor points. Let's pretend that I put in the time to upgrade a piece to a 213. Meanwhile, maybe I excel at running 15s, but I never make time, and in the following week I open my weekly chest and whoa, it's the same item, but it's a 226. So what happens to that 213 piece that I put all them points into? Is it wasted Valor? Will there be a way to scrap that gear and get some or all of my Valor back? Obviously, I shouldn't be able to scrap any old Mythic dungeon gear that I didn't put Valor points into, but knowing would really help. My hopes are that the kinks get worked out sooner than later, but definitely before 9.1, when we get a fresh season and these sorts of answers are really going to matter. Now let's get into some of the class and covenant changes. It's been a bit light this week, which may or may not spell doom for your class. That hasn't been given enough attention. The Feral Legendary, Cat Eye Curio, had its energy regeneration set to 30%, down from 35%, closing some opportunities to use some extra energy. Beastmaster Hunters had its legendaries nerfed slightly as well, with a small proc reduction to Dire Command and a small crit damage bonus nerf to Rylak Stalker's Piercing Fangs. And the damage from Spitting Cobra has been increased by 260%. Xuan's battle gear got another buff. Now the crit strike chance of Rising Sun Kick is increased by a whopping 50%, up from 30%. The PvP talent for Holy Paladin's Ultimate Sacrifice had its duration reduced by half, which sort of nerfs the cheesiness of this ability in PvP, but it's still really effective in the right hands. I think Blizzard might have heard me when I talked about the Light of Dawn legendary. The duration of the healing bonus was nerfed since the last build from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, but it's still better than the current live version of 6 seconds. It still gives plenty of time to line up Beacon of Virtue with an extra Light of Dawn or maybe a Divine Toll. Murad's Dying Breath no longer makes the caster take extra damage from Light of the Martyr, and it turns the self-damage into damage over time. You basically die slower. The Prot Paladin Legendary, the Ardent Protector's Sanctum, is now not unlike having their own Guardian Spirit. The life-saving proc will now heal for more, and if the proc is not used, the cooldown is reduced by 40%, reducing the cooldown of this ability to something like a minute. And for Ret Pally's Final Verdict was given a 15% buff. I guess they needed it. Assassination Rogue Energy Regeneration was given a buff, with Venomous Wounds giving 1 extra energy from dot ticks. It looks like Sepsis, the Night Fae ability, will work with the Dreadblades talent, but I'm not very knowledgeable of this. I'm not even sure if this is just a tooltip change, because my rogue happened to pick up the Necrolord ability, and I'm not even sure if I regret that decision either. And the Concealed Blunderbuss legendary was buffed to proc Pistol Shot 3 times, up from 2. The Echoes of Great Sundering for Shaman will buff Earthquake by 120%, up from 100. Affliction Warlocks get a little bit more longevity with a strong Demon Armor talent. Demonology Locks get a small buff to their puppy damage, and Curse of Tongue's duration has been doubled. Circling back to general Covenant abilities, Flayed Shot is getting a small buff to proc more kill shots. Cool. Flushcraft is being retuned a little bit. It seems like Blizzard still wants it to be a damage reduction cooldown, but the defensive benefit was nerfed from 30% to 20%, which still makes it pretty strong in many situations. Finally, in Dungeonville, there was a bit of retuning. In Halls of Atonement, the melee damage from those big old gargoyles that Venthyr can temporarily control have been nerfed, making us rely on our actual class abilities a little bit more. In Sanguine Depths, though, the other Venthyr buff is being buffed. The cans that do Anima Drain now last for 60 seconds, up from 45. The actual buff you get now lasts for 1.3 minutes, up from 1 minute. Now this is cool and everything, but I'm a bit wary of this change. Sanguine Depths is pretty notorious for being one of the more difficult of the Shadowlands dungeons by quite a bit, and I'm not sure if just buffing the Venthyr specific perk is the direction Blizzard ought to make this dungeon a little bit more accessible. But what do you think? That's going to be a wrap for what we know so far. Let us know what you think in a comment below. Like the video if it was useful, and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. We'll see you in the next build. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.